Hello, this is your video lesson about length, and we are talking about finding the length of a segment in the coordinate plane. And the coordinate plane is simply on a grid as shown here. Now, when you have a video lesson, you need to pause the video as you need, write down what you need, not necessarily everything, but be focused on the lesson and be engaged in the lesson. It's not to just copy things down. This is how you are going to learn the material. So please try and engage in the lesson as you go. So number one, explain the difference between this thing and this thing. So both of them have an AC. The difference is in the first one, there is this little line segment over top. And what this thing is, this is an object, meaning it's a thing. I can draw it. If I could create it, I could touch it. So it is a segment. It's a line segment, and it looks like this. A is one endpoint, and C is one endpoint. Now, this other thing that I have over here with this AC, and there's nothing over top. This thing's not an object, it's a number. And what this number represents is, it's the length of segment AC. And again, that's a number. So anytime you see two letters with nothing over top, it's asking you for how long is that segment. Moving on to number two. Number two is called prerequisite knowledge. Now, that's knowledge or information you should know, and it's prerequisite. Prerequisite means you've learned this information already. You should actually be able to do everything on A through D on your own now that you know what notation like this represents. So, prerequisite knowledge. Use the diagram at the right to answer the following questions. So number one, what is AC? Now we just talked about that, and this is going to be a number because it's going to be a length. So I'm going to come over to segment AC. Here's A, here's C, and I'm simply going to count to see how long that is. So to count, I start at point A, and I'm going to count over. So from here to here, that's 1. So I'm going to do that all the way across. So I start at A and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that length is 8. So I'm going to put a little 8 right here. Part B, what is CB? So again, this is looking for a number, and this number is going to represent the length. So I'm going to start at C, and I'm going to count until I get to B, and I would like for you to do that right now. So go ahead and count the length of CB. When I counted this length, I got 6. So that length is 6. Part C, draw segment AB. Now we don't have to get a ruler or anything. I mean, you can if you would like, but I'm just going to draw the segment from A to B. And in part C it says, what kind of triangle is triangle ABC? Now, I don't know if it's isosceles, if it's scalene, I don't know. Well, actually, I think it is scalene, but I'm not sure. But what I do know is right here at C, that's a right angle. So I know that that is 90 degrees, or that that is a right angle. And because this triangle has a right angle, it is a right triangle. So part D. What theorem can you use to find the length of a side of a right triangle if you know the lengths of the other two sides? So for this one, I need to know the name of the theorem. And I'm not sure if you remember the name, but in any right triangle, you can use Pythagorean Theorem. And you probably know that as a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Part E says, okay, use your answer to part D above, your Pythagorean theorem, to find AB. Now what we have to remember about in Pythagorean theorem is that this C, this is the side that is opposite, I'm not going to fit that word, opposite from the right angle. It's the side across from the right angle, and it actually has a name, and it's called the hypotenuse. So across from the right angle is this side. That is going to be my C. So that's what I'm trying to find, which means that my A, I can use 8 as my A, and then for my B, I can use 6 for my B, and that's going to be equal to C squared. And then I just need to work this out. So 8 squared is 8 times 8, and that is 64. 6 squared is 6 times 6, and that is 36. And if I add 64 and 36, that gives me 100. Now, in order to solve for C, I need to take the square root of 100. In other words, what times itself gives me 100? And the square root of 100 is 10. So the length of AB, segment AB, is 10. So nothing here was new. Nothing. We were counting, and we were doing Pythagorean theorem. Nothing was new. However, you used all of these ideas to do something you've probably never done before, which is find a length in the coordinate plane. So what you're going to do is number 3 now. Number 3 is going to be actually doing this. So we're doing exactly what we just did. 2 points are graphs, find the length of the segment. So this looks a little different than what we started with before. I'm going to scroll up real fast to show you that. So what we started out with is we had this red segment here going across. We had this blue segment here going down, and then we drew in the slanty line AB. I'm scrolling back down to number 3. In this one, we've been given the slanty line, so I've got to find those other segments. So I'm going to start with step 1. I'm going to start at the bottom point, the lowest point. And again, write down what you need. You don't have to write everything, but whatever you need. If I'm going too quickly, simply pause your video so that you can write down everything that you want to write down. So my lowest point is going to be A. I put a little X there. That's my lowest point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to count up until I'm even with the higher point. Okay. And again, you need to pause the video to write that down. Pause the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw from A. I'm going to draw a segment going straight up. And then I'm going to put my pencil on B, and I'm going to draw a segment going straight across. And you see that now I have created this triangle that I'm looking for. So I'm going to start down at A where my X is, and I'm going to count up till I'm even with B, which is where I've placed that point. So when you count from your X to the point, how many is that? Okay, I got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know that that is 4. My second step is starting from there. So I placed a point there. I'm going to count over until I'm on the other point. my other point being B. Oops, I wrote B down when I meant to write point. Sorry about that. So from here, from my circle, I'm going to count over to B. So go ahead and count out from the red circle to the blue circle. So when I counted that out, I got 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now all I have to do to find this slanty line here, which is my C, is Pythagorean theorem. So step 3 is use Pythagorean theorem. And again, you don't have to write all this down to find C. And I'm going to write down Pythagorean theorem because you do need to know that. You shouldn't have to look that up. So I need to use something for my A. My A is 4. I need something for my B. My B is 10. And then I'm trying to find C. So 4 squared is 4 times 4. That's 16. 10 squared is 10 times 10. That's 100. And when I combine that, I get 116. And of course, when I'm trying to find what C is, I'm going to take the square root of that. Now, I can leave my answer any one of 3 ways. I can leave it exactly like that, square root of 116. I can write it in what's called simplest radical form. And in this case, simplest radical form looks like this. That means that 4 times 29 is 116. Or I could grab my calculator, plug in the square root of 116, and get 10.770. Be sure to include 3 decimal places. So we have now done one problem together, writing down step by step how to do this problem. So go ahead and turn the page in your packet. And when you turn the page, you see this thing called You Try 3. So this should match with problem 3. It should be exactly the same as problem 3, except, of course, we have a different grid. We have new points over here on our graph. So we're doing the same thing. Find the length of segment FM, but this one is a U try. Whenever you see a U try, what I want you to do is pause the video. You complete the problem in its entirety. You do it all by yourself. Feel free to look back at your notes, what you just did, because that's what this is about. But you pause the video, complete the entire problem. When you play the video again, the solution to this problem will be shown. So please pause the video here to complete You Try 3. Here is the solution to You Try 3. The answer is in the box. So if your answer is good, you're just going to keep playing the video. If your answer is not good, what you need to do is pause the video, look over the solution, and figure out what went wrong when you were doing it. So go ahead and right now, if your answer is wrong, pause the video and go through the solution and figure out if you can find the mistake. If your answer was good, we're going to move on to number 4. So number 4 is now saying the same thing. 2 coordinates are given. Find the length of segment AB. So now I don't have a graph. It wasn't given to me. If I had a graph, I could plot the points and then do exactly what I just did. But I've been given this without a graph. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to do really what we were doing before. We're going to find the distance or the length between the x's and the distance between the y's. And again, write down whatever it is you need. So I have 2 points. I've got point A this I would like you to write. We're going to write down point A, which is at -4, -1. I'm just copying from right here. And then I'm going to write down point B, and that is at 2, 7. And again, copying from right here. I'm going to draw this line. So first thing I'm going to find is I'm going to find the distance between the x's. And the x's are the first coordinates. So I'm trying to find the distance between -4 and +2. Now, just as a little side note, let me draw this over here. We probably don't need to go through all of this. We can probably figure it out. So I'm trying to find the distance between -4 and +2. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, is there a way to do this without actually drawing my number line and counting? And there is. I take the bigger number, 2, and I subtract the smaller number, which was -4. And that's 2 plus 4, which comes out to be 6. So that distance is 6. So right now, I would like for you to find the distance between the y's. So go ahead and find the distance between the y's. Okay, so the distance between the y's is 8. So all we're going to do now is use Pythagorean Theorem. So step 2, well, step 2 is really find the distances, but step 2, we're going to use Pythagorean Theorem. I'm going to scroll a little bit, and we have a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. And in this case, my a is 6, and my b is 8, and that is equal to c squared. And 6 times 6 is 36, and 8 times 8 is 64. I feel like we've seen this before. If I add that, I get 100. And c is the square root of 100, which is otherwise known as 10. So the length of AB is 10. Now you have two different methods that we have used to find a length, and it does not matter which one you use. I'm never going to do what I did here, which is to tell you to do something with or without a graph. I just wanted to show you that it was possible to complete this problem without a graph. So let's go ahead to the next page. And on the next page, we are doing this problem with a graph. Now, if you look at this grid, it's not the most friendly grid. However, this grid is what you will have when you take your SOL test. This is the graph paper. I don't know if you recognize it from last year, but this is the graph paper that you get to use. So what we need to do first, if we're going to use this graph, is step 1, we need to plot and label A, which is at -4, -1, and B, which is at 2, 7. So to do that, I need to actually make my axes. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I would probably use a ruler if I had it. I don't have one. So I'm just going to draw, this is going to be my x-axis. I'm going to need a y-axis. Now, I didn't really pay attention to the points. I just went ahead and drew my axes in sort of in the middle-ish, just to kind of make myself a grid. And again, when you take your SOL test, this is what it's going to look like. So I need to label A as at -4, -1. The first number is the x, the second number is the y. I always start at the origin. That's the big point here with the x-axis and y-axis across. So -4 is backwards 4. So I go back 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's my -4. And then I go down -1. So -1 is down. This point right here is A. Then I need to label B. B is at 2, 7. Again, I start back at the origin right here. And 2 is positive, so I go to the right 2. So I'm right here, and then I go 7. That means up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And here's B. So here's my segment AB. I'm going to go ahead and draw it in because I like to actually see my segment. And then what I'm going to do is create my triangle. So step 2, I'm going to count up and over, hope I can say that now, from the lowest point, that's not a from the lowest point to the highest point. So my lowest point is point A. And again, I'm going to count up, so I'm just going to draw myself a line all the way up. And I want to go even with B, so I start at B and I go over till I've crossed and I've created my right triangle. Then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So from 8 up is, from A up is 8. So I went up 8, and now I need to count my over. My over from here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And my over is 6. And from here, we should be rocking and rolling. I know I need to use Pythagorean Theorem. So I have a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. My a is 8. My b in this case is 6. That's equal to c squared. I'm going to scroll a little bit. So I have 8 squared, and 8 times 8 is 64, and 6 squared is 6 times 6, which is 36, and I feel like I've seen this before. 100 is equal to c squared, and I take the square root of that, which means the length is 10. So we did the same problem. Actually, we've done the same problem 3 times, I believe. So the last two, one was without the graph and one was with the graph. Again, if there's anything you didn't catch, pause the video here to make sure that you have it, whatever information you want to have written down. So I'm going to turn the page, actually scroll down, my bad. And this is a U try. So here we are, we're doing another U try, which means this is all on you. I am not specifying or telling you a certain method to use, so either use the graph or don't use the graph, whichever you're more comfortable with. So go ahead and pause the video here to complete U try 4. Here is the solution to U try 4. Your answer is at the very bottom underneath the grid. So if your answer is correct, please continue with the video. If your answer is not correct, you're going to need to check your work and see if there are any mistakes. So pause the video here if your answer was not correct. Moving on to the last bit, number 5. So this is what you need to look for. There are 3 different ways that I can ask you to find length. One way is to say, find the distance between 2 points. So distance. When I say distance, you're really doing length. The other way I can do it is I could say, find the length of, and then I can give you a segment in segment notation. So that's find the length of segment AB. And again, that means do exactly what we just did. And the final way is I can just say find AB and put nothing over top of it, and that also means to find the length. And finally, we've talked about this throughout the video. There are 3 ways that you can leave your answer. You can leave your answer in square root form, which is what you get just from doing Pythagorean Theorem. You can leave your answer in decimal form, and that is just when you plug in this thing into the calculator, you're going to get this. But the key is Give me 3 decimal places and cut off the rest of the decimals. I only want 3 decimal places. Don't round, just cut it off. If you remember how to do simplest radical form, you may leave it in simplest radical form, and I will accept any of those 3 answers. So your video lesson is over. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.